open mic nights at the other cafe in San Francisco. And so it was really inappropriate, actually. To think this high school teacher is signing me up for open mics, and she would sign up Sam Rockwell also. And he and I sometimes did a double act, so I had a comedy partner when I was 14, 15. And then I started going on my own and just doing sets all the time, and I really loved it.
Is Sam Rockwell, he's on my short list. I would say he's my... I can't name 3 other people more underrated than Sam Rockwell.
He's a genius.
I don't understand what it is.
He's really genius.
He's not like a household name.
Well, I think because he's such a good actor that he disappears into the character, so you actually sometimes don't know if he's him. I mean, I know it's him all the time because it's like I know him well, but at that, at sort of when you're sitting in the movie, you can't really tell.
What kind of gags would you and Sam... Did you write your own stuff at 14? Did you and Sam get together and workshop something?
No, we were totally just kind of doing improv and kind of doing whatever and doing stuff exercises that we had done in class and bringing them to the stage. And so I have really...
Which class, though?
These comedy improv classes.
Okay, because if it was like algebra, it wouldn't have fit at all.
No, it would have been weird.
That would have been weird, yeah.
But then he left, he moved to New York. His mother moved to New York, and so they left. And then so I just kept going to shows, and then I would go to see Paula Poundstone all the time, and I just worshipped her, and I thought, I want to be like that. And I just kept watching people and, just really just falling in love with comedy.
It really seems to me that the best school is just watching. Like when I watch certain movies, I'm like, I don't know what acting class could teach me. Mm-hmm. Like watching Meryl Streep in Sophie's Choice or like Kevin Kline, that madness. So it is. I just love that you said watching. Paula Poundstone and San Francisco. Don't you find it weird when you go around the country, there's surprise comedy towns? Like you go to Denver and there's like 40 comics there that are great. And you're like, Denver, comedy. Yeah. Who knew?
It's great. Or Atlanta.
Yeah.
It's great. It's
Atlanta
great.
has a lot of comedy
really,
too.
Really great. Really great.
You told a great story on one of your specials that it was just on about your grandfather having burnt his face.
Yes, yes.
And that was... Like, that's where comedy needs to go, is what you're doing. It was so great. It was so touching. And I really think it's the importance of comedy, not to, put ourselves on pedestals or anything, but we could hypothetically be on pedestals. The comfortableness with which you are in the pauses. And when it's dead silent in that theater, and the crowd's uncomfortable for maybe a moment or two because they think you're going to make some goofy joke about like a burnt face, and you don't. It's like this incredibly touching story, and I think it's half the battle of us is getting out of our own way and realizing what actually happened to us. It doesn't have to be like, look, I used to tell jokes about eating ass and get fingers, and I used to hump the stool and yell a lot, and that's I killed, and if my jokes per minute were off the charts, but I'm embarrassed by it, and now when you realize how much is to be mined just from that quietness and how much trust you get and how much of all that, I just was very impressed. I'm just washing your balls, sorry.
No, thank you.
I'm like, you're the best. Thanks for coming. You're the best.
It's awesome. No, I mean, I love that. I mean, I love my grandfather. My grandfather was a very brave guy, and he was very disfigured and had really just kind of sacrificed his face in order to save all the children that he was taking care of.
I think that needs to be reset, though, how your grandfather...
Well, my grandfather, there was a huge fire in this house. My grandfather was like a chronic child adopter because there were a lot of children who had lost their parents during the Korean War. And so he would go around to these villages and just take the kids who were homeless in Korea. Okay. And this was in Busan. And so it's like very country and very, they were probably poor too. But he would just kind of grab up these kids. And then my grandfather's actual children, like my dad, were really angry because they felt like, well, we're your real kids and you're acting like these kids are your kids and that's not right and all this stuff. But then there was a huge fire and my grandfather went in and saved 19 children and burnt his face completely off. And so he felt very... good about himself. He felt more handsome after the fire. He was a very handsome man, but he is so disfigured. Yet, for some reason, he was hotter. Like, he was sexier with this fucked up face. And then, when I was a little girl, there was a big commotion around me because my mother's really beautiful, my father's really good looking, and it was a shock that I was not. So when I was a kid, I was so awkward. And so my grandfather would say, well, you and me, we're the same because we're ugly, but we're gonna kill it. We're gonna do great. You know, we're gonna be fine in life. And so that's what I learned from him. He sort of got whatever he wanted, even though he was terribly disfigured. And he kind of looked to me to say, like, look, everything is going to be okay. You know, you may not fit in now, but it's going to be great later. And so, you know, that's a good example. That's a good example to have in your life.
And it's an incredible message, too. I mean, to anybody, all the kids, you know, teenagers listening to this that don't feel like they fit in, comics, any outlier. It's such a great story. I mean, just you resetting that story. What was your grandfather's name?
Myung-suk.
Myung-suk?
Cho Myung-suk.
Will you write it down for me before you leave? It's important to me. It's really beautiful.
Yes, thank you.
And on his deathbed, he gave you some sage words?
Well, he died in it, and he right before he died, he said, "Oh, no. 왜 텔레비 안 나와?" Which means why aren't you on television anymore? And it was like, then he just died.
He fit right into American culture.
Yes, because he was so like he just couldn't believe that, you know, he had sort of endured all of this hard life, and then, you know, came to America and endured another kind of like onslaught of racism and all this stuff, and then he, you know, sort of saw me kind of being this comic, and then saw me on television, and he was so amazed that I was on TV, and so all through his he was like in his 90s, late 90s, I think, like very, very sick and barely hanging on to life. But he would watch television, and he would just be so excited to see me that he just stay alive another week to see the show again. And then when the show was canceled, he really thought, I don't need to live anymore. But it was okay because he was so old.
ABC killed your grandfather.
He's dead because of that.
Yeah, it's really ABC's fault.
Yes. But you know what was weird? When he was dying, his eyes turned blue.
Really?
Yeah, like the pupils of his eyes turned
Maybe Hitler
blue.
was right. I mean, at the very last second, people are just going over to the light side.
Yeah, you just turn like blue-eyed. It was very odd. It was very shocking.
Why do you think his eyes turned blue? Was it a medical thing, or is it just?
Well, he had been partially blind, and then he just really lost all of the pigment in his eyes or something. That got all like blue. But it was very weird. It was very, very weird.
Did you? Why aren't you on television? It's so funny. It is weird. Like I think more than our parents, our grandparents, they're almost like surreptitious about it, like how they get dialed into our careers. I remember my grandfather getting chemo at Scott White Hospital in Temple, Texas, and I just went to visit him, and he lived in a motorhome, and he drove himself, like had to do everything himself, you know. And he drove himself to the hospital, parked his motorhome, and he got the most exciting thing about being there was there's a jitney that comes and picks me up at the door of my motorhome at 7:15. It's free. Free jitney. They come get me. Like he's going through chemo and radiation. He goes, you won't believe this place. It comes right here.
No,
the jitney, as opposed
wonderful.
to, I'm like, why don't you just drive your motor? Well, neither here nor there. But I remember, you know, you can watch them on the video camera in the other room getting their chemo. And radiation. And I remember my grandfather, as he was going, it wasn't a tube, he was just laying on a bed. He goes, it's my grandson in there. He's on Saturday Night Live. Like, I never was on a sketch. I was, you know, always like a bailiff. And I'd come in and go, here are your papers. And I'd leave and let, you know, the stars of the show do their thing. Like, I didn't know, like, this guy should not know what Saturday Night Live is. And like at the scariest moment of his life, he's bragging to a doc, like, that's my grandson. He's on Saturday Night Live.
That's beautiful.
It was ridiculously beautiful. And I liked that your grandfather, just the fact that he was alarmed that you weren't on television anymore.
Yes, because he could understand that I was on TV, but he couldn't understand cancellation. Like that's well, you know, what does that mean? You know, what does it mean to be canceled? Like he didn't really get that part. He thought if you were on TV that you would just continue to.
Yeah, people don't buy enough Tide when your show is on.
Yes.
Would he watch it early? Would, like, you know, my grandfather had no concept, but TV was on nonstop in my grandparents' house. So any show they watched, it was really like, you couldn't really count them as a Nielsen family.
They were just on.
It was just always on.
Yeah.
Just, they happened to be walking through the house to get more bait and go out the back door to fish some more, and they happened to be watching Golden Girls, and that's like a point for them.
Yeah.
Did he plan? So he was an event.
It was an event, but he would start watching the television too early because he didn't understand time, like exactly what time it was on, because he couldn't really read that English that well. So he could sort of figure it out, but he was sort of think, well, I guess it's on at night, and then he would turn the TV on around 6:30, and then the show was like on around 8 or whatever. But he would just start early because he knew that when the sun went down, that was probably the right time.
You don't want to miss it.
No,
it could be government control. It could be government controlled TV.
Yeah.
You don't know when they're going to jerry rig it, and they did. The government canceled All American Girl.
They did.
You have written many books. 3 books.
I've written 2 books. I'm not. I don't know. I don't know if I write as much as I'd like to. I should write more. Do you write a lot? You wrote a book, didn't you?
I wrote 2 as well, and
Yeah.
but I've only written about me. My favorite subject, obviously. And then people go, "You should write more." And I'm like, well, I wrote about having a kid and being on a show. I don't know what else. I would write about.
Well, I mean, you're writing all the time, though, in your mind because you're a comic, so that's a constant. It's constant.
I don't think many people know this, but my wife in the last year has written 2 hours of my stand-up comedy.
Oh, that's great.
And like ridiculously good.
Uh-huh.
So now I have the great problem, which is I have too much material, and I want to do another special, so I got to whittle it down to that 55 minutes.
Oh, that's great.
So I would like to say, oh, sure, I'm writing all the time, but in reality, I sleep on an airplane, and when I wake up, she hands me a notebook and goes, "You should do a joke about house hunters."
That's wonderful.
It is wonderful, but I'm afraid maybe it's making me lazy. Maybe I should write too.
Well, you deliver it, and then you do writing in the delivery, too, so you're constantly working on it.
I'm good in the delivery room. I write in the delivery room, too, in my OBGYN job. What's the weirdest job you had? I know this is like a stupid hack question, but what jobs did you have before stand-up comedy? It didn't seem like there was really any time for any other jobs.
No. I was Raggedy Ann at FAO Schwartz, and so I worked there for a few years, and then it was the job that I had the most problem.
In San Francisco?
In San Francisco, the FAO Schwartz, sorry. But I had the most problem with so I was like maybe 17, and then I had this like crazy like little girl like Raggedy Ann outfit, and so many fathers tried to buy me, like they wanted to buy me, like it was like a weird. It was real. I've never been so sexually harassed in my life,
As Raggedy Ann.
As Raggedy Ann, there is a very complicated relationship that people have with that character, and it's really pretty shocking. And
it surprises me.
It's really shocking. I mean, I had a yarn wig and everything. I mean, it's really not sexy.
I didn't know. You know what? Now I get it. I didn't know you had a yarn wig.
It was very...
I got a little flow when you said yarn wig. I'll be honest with you.
It's freaky, though. It's really freaky.
And that's not okay.
No, it's weird.
There are some okay kid things. Nothing kid. That sounded wrong. There's iconic children's figures. Like, princesses that you'll meet like at Disneyland.
Yes.
Like when I met Cinderella at Disney, I'm with my wife and my kid. We go to Disneyland. All the princesses are lined up. And it's Ariel, and they don't really talk that much.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's kind of a bullshit princess, kind of new, unless Disney's listening. And then, of course, I love Ariel. She's the best one, whatever it takes to get me in the sequel. And then like another one and another princess. And then there's Sleeping Beauty. And you go, all right, I got to tell you, when Cinderella stood up, I had a fucking problem. Like I was like Jackie Gleason, and she looked me right in the eye, and it was just she had my full attention, and I was with my wife and my child, and I had the time stood still. Like I didn't know I had anything for Cinderella.
Yeah.
And it's not the girl in the wig. It's what it represents, I guess.
Was she wearing the glass slipper? Was she in that kind of the ballroom Cinderella, or was she the raggedy Cinderella?
No, she was ballroomed up.
Oh, yeah.
She was zooted and
So it wasn't
booted.
midnight yet.
No, it was not midnight. And so I knew time was ticking. I knew if I had any chance, I had to work quickly.
Yeah,
and I got to
fast.
figure out what to do with this family I brought with me to Disneyland. They're really holding me back with my Cinderella problem. But yeah, I don't know if she was wearing glass slippers. I really could not stop staring into her eyes.
Wow.
She had my full attention.
That's beautiful.
You've met a lot of politicians, I'm sure. You're very active. You've written a book about global and societal issues. It's like when you meet an upper echelon, like a Hillary Clinton, when you look in their eye, they look into your soul. It's a gift that I've only known politicians to have.
Yes.
Or maybe Richard Gere and the Dalai Lama, that when they shake your hand and look at you, you're the only person that has ever lived on Earth.
Oh, that's true.
And that's how Cinderella looked at me. Like how Hillary Clinton. Maybe Hillary Clinton was Cinderella.
Maybe. Or Bill Clinton.
That would be rad. If Bill Clinton was Cinderella, I would have given him a what for. I'll tell you that right now. Let me tell you a glass cigar.
Glass cigar.
Matty Boy's good for a couple of show. Let me tell you something about that Cinderella. Gavin Newsom, your former governor in San Francisco, you still a big fan?
He's great. He's great. Now he's a lieutenant governor of California.
He's our family's favorite politician. Where we got a lot riding on this guy.
Yeah.
Don't mess it up, Gavin.
He's a wonderful guy. He's a really great guy, and his wife is great too, Jennifer Siebel Newsom.
Yeah,
he's wonderful.
He's like a dyed-in-the-wool Catholic. He's not for gay marriage. He's not pro-abortion, but when it was 14, did you and Sam get together and workshop something?
No, we were totally just kind of doing improv and kind of doing whatever and doing stuff exercises that we had done in class and bringing them to the stage. And so I have really...
Which class, though?
These comedy improv classes.
Okay, because if it was like algebra, it wouldn't have fit at all.
No, it would have been weird.
That would have been weird, yeah.
But then he was 15. And then I started going on my own and just doing sets all the time, and I really loved it.
Is Sam Rockwell, he's on my short list. I would say he's my... I can't name 3 other people more underrated than Sam Rockwell.
He's a genius.
I don't understand what it is.
He's really genius.
He's not like a household name.
Well, I think because he's such a good actor that he disappears into the character, so you actually sometimes don't know if he's him. I mean, I know it's him all the time because it's like I know him well, but at that, at sort of when you're sitting in the movie, you can't really tell.
What kind of gags would you insert? Did you write your own stuff?
Or open mic nights at the other cafe in San Francisco. And so it was really inappropriate, actually. Think this high school teacher is signing me up for open mics, and she would sign up Sam Rockwell also. And he and I sometimes did a double act. So I had a comedy partner when I was 14. When he left, he moved to New York. His mother moved to New York, and so they left. And then so I just kept going to shows, and then I would go to see Paula Poundstone all the time, and I just worshipped her, and I thought, I want to be like that. And I just kept watching people and, just really just falling in love with comedy.
It really seems